Beautiful day for baseball, the final game of the regular season. It does matter because a win today over Chicago and the Cardinals have assured themselves home field advantage in the playoffs. And welcome to Cardinals baseball. That's Al Rabowski. Rick Horton, I'm Dan McLaughlin. Al, let's jump right into it. This homestand very good thus far with 5 wins, 5 out of 5, and offensively, Yadier Molina's been outstanding.
Yeah, he's been outstanding. A .438 batting average. He's hit in all 6 games on this homestand. Matter of fact, he's got a hit and an RBI in all 5 games of this homestand. And we want to keep it going because home field advantage is at stake.
So 7 for 16 for Yadier Molina on this homestand. Meanwhile, Rick, how about pitching for you?
Well, I like Trevor Rosenthal. 3 saves this week, and he is getting more and more confident at the back end of this Cardinal bullpen. And not only his confidence, but his manager and his teammates having more and more confidence in it.
Those two, obviously, standouts all season long. Jake Westbrook, big start for him. We'll talk about that in the Gateway City when we come back. Baseball is coming up.
A record 60 years.
take a look at 5 players that could have an impact in this upcoming playoff run of St. Louis. These are players that are not involved with the Cardinals. Craig Kimbrell of Atlanta. This year, Kimbrell became the 11th reliever in history to record 50 saves in a season, a 1.23 ERA. Ironically enough, though, no saves in the postseason. What about Joey Votto of Cincinnati? The 2010 MVP set a new Reds franchise record this year, reaching base 312 times. His power numbers are down. On-base percentage, outstanding. He could be a factor. Lefty Francisco Liriano. For the first time since '92, the Pirates are in the playoffs. Liriano's comeback season, a big reason why. 16 wins and ERA just over 3. He was dominant against St. Louis this year. Yasiel Puig will probably win the Rookie of the Year, considering the Dodgers were last in the West when he arrived in June and wound up the division winners for the first time since 2009. Exciting young player. He'll be in center stage come playoff time this year. And Aroldis Chapman, the Reds' flamethrower, has been red hot down the stretch, allowing just 1 run in his last 13 appearances, 8 for 8 in save opportunities. He's one of the best at closing games out. 5 players outside of St. Louis that could have an impact in this year's playoff run of the St. Louis Cardinals. Wrap up the regular season today. Let's take a look at the plays of the year. And that is driven out to deep left center field. This is hammered. Oh, it's gone. Sliding catch is made. Oh, what a catch. This is crushed. Cardinals have the lead. Up the middle. Diving stop. Oh, Descalso, what a play. Got him. 12 strikeouts as Wainwright goes the distance.
Holiday sends it deep to center field, and that one's not coming back.
He got him. 27 in a row. Runners go. The squeeze is on. Cosma delivers with the squeeze. A swing and a long drive. Left center field. It's a grand slam. Yachty hits it out to deep left. Gone. Cardinals on top. Running catch made. Carpenter deep right. At the wall. Gone. That's a base hit into right field. Jay on his way to third. They may just win it now, and they do. Throw to second. Not even close.
Ball scoots away. Here comes Cosma. Sliding. Save. He's saved. Chambers slaps it the other way. Here comes Jay. He is saved. And the Cardinals win it. Runner goes. Doesn't matter. Walk it off. Adams again. Right center. The big man crushes one again. Diving forward from his knees. Oh! You talk about the play of the year. Swing and a miss and a strikeout. There's that changeup. So good from Michael Wacha. Oh, he got him! He got him! 2 away! Zimmerman, ground ball. Wacha can't make the play. Cosma bare hands. The tag. No! And Zimmerman beats it out. And Michael Wacha loses the no-hitter. Right center, Jay is over. Diving! Oh! What a catch! John Jay. Track wall. Grand slammer! 0-1 pitch. Ground ball up the middle. Carpenter throws to first. He got him! The Cardinals, the 2013 National League Central champions. Ball is brought to you by Budweiser. Great times are waiting. Designated driver. See your Mid-America Chevy dealer or log on to stlchevy.com. Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers, #1 for quality tires and expert auto service. Save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. And by Steak and Shake. Steak and Shake, just no equal. Many thanks to all our sponsors all season long, including Toyota, with our keys to the game. And let's turn it over to Rick Horton.
Well, we're going to start with one last push. The Cardinals playing a very important game today, trying to get home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And they're going to have to balance some different objectives today. The Cardinals going with Jake Westbrook as an honor to him. And they're also making some deals as we speak. Yadier Molina was announced as the starter, but Tony Cruz replaces him just so the fans can give a round of applause to Yadi.
And the first pitch by Jake Westbrook is hit out of play. Westbrook celebrating his 36th birthday today. Has not pitched in a ball game since September 6th. It's been well over a month since he started a game. That was on the road against Milwaukee. He is our Kia starter here this afternoon.
Kind of a tribute to what Jake Westbrook has done over the 3.5 years he's been wearing the Cardinal uniform. There's a mutual option between Jake and the club, but things seem like with all the power arms, this last time he'll be wearing the Cardinal uniform.
Starlin Castro looks at a strike. I don't mean to rain on the parade here, fellas, but no Matt Holliday, no Yadier Molina, starting Jake Westbrook. And am I the only one that feels this is a pretty important game?
I feel it's a very important game, and even Mike Matheny was asked in the press scrum, asked about Molina, and it was kind of implied, well, yeah, he's out there trying to help Jake Westbrook, but that's not the case. Not that Tony Cruz can't help out. It's a nice gesture, but I agree with 4 days off after today.
And a ground ball that's hit to short, charging and making the play. The Cardinal shortstop this afternoon, Daniel Descalso. And again, it's not a shot at the guys that are in there. They're major league talent out there on this roster. However, it's not your starting nine.
Well, it's the second key that I was getting ready to explain when Yadier Molina got taken off the field today, is the importance of balancing objectives. Matt Holliday not in the lineup because he reached 300, which is a nice milestone, and you're happy about that. You certainly would love to pay tribute to Jake Westbrook and what he's meant to this team personally, and helping lead some of the younger players, and so you have kind of some of those objectives in mind. But the other objective is to win this game because it matters, and you know they're trying to, I guess, balance those objectives, and I think some risky decisions going on here. But that's, I guess we're going to find out just how they play out over the next 9 innings.
And we could see that this could be the only inning that Jake pitches. Joe Kelly is slated to follow him, and Mike Matheny saying it'll be sooner rather than later.
And guys, he's already starting to throw in the bullpen. Here's Logan Watkins back to Westbrook. Flips over to Adams. Dale Swaim, let's take a look at his lineup this afternoon. Castro, Watkins, just saw those two. Now Rizzo, Shearholtz, Sweeney, Murphy, Bogusevic, Boscan, and Samardzija, the pitcher. Around the Horn is brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Our guys are so good in the truck, they've already swapped out Tony Cruz and Yadier Molina.
That was quick. How'd they know that?
Good work.
Jake Westbrook's doing the best thing he can to make it not a controversial decision.
There's a shot into left center field by Anthony Rizzo. It's cut off by the Cardinal center fielder today, John Jay. And a 2-out double for Rizzo. You just wonder, if you're seeing these changes now, how many changes will be going on throughout the ball game. And this pitch taken and driven out to left center. We should mention that the Cardinals do have an option on Jake Westbrook. It is a $1 million buyout. By all indications that we hear, and with the youngsters that they have coming up, you would think that would be the case, the latter, buying him out of the deal. Time will tell. Here's Shearholtz.
And important to note, if we get to the bottom of the ninth and the Cardinals need a pinch hitter here, and the game is on the line, guess who's not available? Yadier Molina.
Or, not starting Holliday, would he be available trying to maintain his 300 average?
Here's a 1-0 pitch. And it's not like we're making a big deal out of something that is small. This is home field advantage, where the Cardinals have won more games at home in this ballpark than ever before. They have set a record with home wins at Busch Stadium 3 with 53. They're 53-27. Atlanta, by the way, 55 wins at home. So when you look at their season, and if the Cardinals would match up with them, home field advantage is huge.
And they also have a 3-0 lead batting in the second inning against Philadelphia. So Cardinals have to win this game.
Two-one pitch. Lined foul, 2-2. St. Louis Cardinals, and this is since 1982. Looking at some of those best records since that time. 85 with 54 wins. Ricky, you know about that. We know about the great team in 2004 that had over 100 wins, back-to-back 100-win seasons, 04-05, and then this year 53 and 27.
I mentioned this is 53 wins, new record at this ballpark.
Into shallow right field. Let's listen to the ovation. Jake Westbrook, maybe the final time wearing that Cardinal uniform in action. What was the final inning for Jake Westbrook? Carpenter, Jay, and Beltran for the Cardinals. Adams, Cruz, Descalso, Robinson, Wong, and Westbrook. That's the lineup currently constructed. Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers, Bogusevic, Sweeney, and Shearholtz in the outfield. Murphy, Castro, Watkins, and Rizzo on the infield. Boscan is behind the plate. Samardzija on the mound, and 8-12 over 4 ERA, but last time we saw him in St. Louis, he shut down this Cardinal lineup.
Very good pitcher, and as you say, he's got good stuff. He's like great competitor. That was June 18th. He went 8 1/3 innings, allowed 7 hits, but just 2 runs. He walked 1 and struck out 6, and beat the Cardinals 4-1.
Pitch taken by Matt Carpenter. Matt Carpenter, 1 shy of 200 hits, trying to become the first Cardinal since Albert Pujols with 200 hits in a single year. Carpenter bounces it to second. And you wanted to make a follow-up point, what we were talking about last inning.
Well, I think we're talking about home field advantage just in terms of home field advantage, but I think there's another piece of that puzzle, and that's if the Cardinals finish with the best record among all the division leaders in the National League, they will play the wild card winner, which means they're going to face less than the best pitching of that team, whether it's Cincinnati or Pittsburgh, in a short series. So it's the advantage is not just being home twice, it's getting a chance to play the wild card team first, who should be at a disadvantage. And so there's plenty of advantages at stake.
It's going to be Liriano against Cueto in that playoff, and we're really not anxious to see Liriano again face the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals will do a good job whoever they face, but home field advantage to me is very, very crucial.
2-0 pitch. 3-0 on John Jay. Well, put up a 10 spot. We'll shut up and you don't have to worry about it.
Well, Joe Kelly is loose, so really the risk number one that was taken here today by starting Jake, and it's not that Jake is not capable, but clearly Joe Kelly is the guy that's been in the rotation, and so Starting Jake, who has not pitched in a while, was certainly a risk, but that's worked out just fine. And we'll see if the other ones do.
After the catch was made in right field, Jake Westbrook, as we went to break, asked for that baseball, and that would give you the indication that his day is through and probably his St. Louis Cardinals career. 3-2, hit out to center, and a base hit for John Jay. We'll sprinkle these in throughout our telecast this afternoon, but a look at some of the playoff opponents potentially for the Cardinals. Pirates won the season series 10-9. Cardinals won 7 of the last 10. Liriano, Russell Martin, big stars for the Pirates.
And see, Liriano was going to pitch the play-in game, so he would not be available. They'll say possibly what, game 5? The series goes that long.
Liriano and A.J. Burnett against St. Louis at PNC were dominant this year, especially Liriano at an ERA under 1 at home against St. Louis. 0-1 here on Carlos Beltran. How many at-bats will he get today?
Hopefully he gets enough to get to 300.
297 average. By the way, it's a 14-game hitting streak for John Jay to add to his career high.
I don't know about you guys, but when Yadi was taken out of the game here, I found it to be a very odd reaction by the fans here at Busch Stadium, who I think were confused about what was going on, number one, concerned that maybe Yadi's hurt, number two, and number three, concerned that we were losing one of our best players for a game that matters. And it was kind of an odd reaction here, and it was not the intended reaction, clearly, of everybody honoring Yadier Molina. It was kind of this disbelief and stunned St. Louis.
I agree.
I think if you do it midway in the game or first at bat, you pinch hit, whatever the case may be, but in the game, this place would have erupted. But instead, it was kind of ho-hum, and as you said, confusion and not really sure what was going on. Now, we understood up here, but fans are just getting in their seats, getting ready to watch the game as Beltran strikes out in the first K for Samardzija.
Backdoor breaking ball, down and away, paints the corner, and Carlos swings over the top.
Fans, by the way, did a wonderful job with our national anthem. It's become a tradition here at Busch Stadium, the last home game of the season, that the fans are allowed to sing it. I actually love that. I think the players do too. It's like a meaningful kind of community connecting thing that goes on here, and it's fun to be a part of.
And you have a much better voice than Jim Hayes.
I won't respond to that.
Here is Adams with 2 outs and a runner at first. No score, just underway here at Busch Stadium. Our final telecast of the season, but we'll have all the post-game shows and the playoffs. Long run into October. Looking forward to that. The season that began with the loss of Chris Carpenter, Jason Mott, Rafael Furcal, Jaime Garcia. The list goes on, and yet this team 1 win away from securing the best record in the National League. I mentioned the name of Chris Carpenter. I would love to see the team find a way to, if you're going to honor people today and give them a round of applause, nobody deserves that any more than Chris Carpenter. What could be final time that he's playing, or at least watching a regular season game as a member, active player in Major League Baseball.
Would be a nice thought.
One of the all-time greats here in St. Louis, and there is no doubting that. Now, does his numbers stack up with Dizzy Dean and Bob Gibson? No, but his postseason numbers, they certainly do.
Matt Carpenter was honored before the game for his feat of all the doubles he's had from the left side. Franchise record. Crowd loved that moment.
And he also got a nice Rolex from Mr. DeWitt and the ownership group.
So he loved the moment too.
Chris Carpenter has meant an awful lot to this franchise. 3-2 on Adams. A swing and a miss, 2 strikeouts in the inning for Jeff Samardzija. Plaza Tire Service replay. The strikeout of Adams, no score. Victory number 19 yesterday. Cardinals with a win today would secure home field advantage. So Westbrook is out of the game. Here is Joe Kelly, our Chevy call to the pen, and I'll turn it over to our experts and let them figure out how many innings he'll go today.
That's a good question. We have very little feedback on what Mike Matheny's planning on doing today, and Joe Kelly would be one of those guys. Al, I guess you're wondering what his role is going to be in postseason. No decision has been made about pitchers 2 through 4.
I don't think it really matters. You know, he's going to be either in the bullpen or in the rotation. So I think the guideline would be something what we saw with Wainwright yesterday, somewhere around 5 innings. Nobody has to get ready for until Thursday.
So the bottom of the third, we'll keep an eye on that today. The Braves at home leading the Phillies 3-0. So 1 inning, a hit, no damage done. 14 pitches, 9 strikes by Jake Westbrook. So Joe Kelly in to pitch. This is his 22nd relief appearance of the year. And speaking of the Braves, it was a start that Joe made on the road right after the break that really set this team in the right direction. They lost that game, but he pitched well, got another start, pitched well again, and then stayed in the rotation. And you're just not sure where this team would be without the contributions of Joe Kelly here in the second half.
Our Twitter poll, he got a lot of votes from our fans as far as the most valuable pitcher. We had Wainwright on that poll. We had Mujica and Rosenthal, and Kelly got quite a few votes. Fans understanding just how important he's been.
And a strikeout for Joe Kelly. Sweeney retired, and it brings in Donnie Murphy. Cubs' perspective of things, interesting 24 hours coming up for them. Have to wonder about their coaching staff and their manager, Dale Swaim. A lot of talk in Chicago, even though they have a year left on their deals, that they could be replaced, in particular if Joe Girardi becomes available. It's always been out there that the Cubs long to get Joe Girardi back in uniform with them, this time as their manager. He's a free agent to be, and the Yankees seem to be in a state of transition after this year.
And Dan, I think the reason why Dale Swaim and his staff may be in jeopardy is the fact the way these the Cubs are closing out. They've lost 13 of their last 17 games. They're 18-40 in their last 58, and that's the lowest winning percentage in the National League. So they're not exactly closing with any kind of positive momentum.
Joe Girardi and the Yankees finishing up at Houston today, and he was asked before the game about his future, and he said his quote was, "My gut, I haven't really made my mind up just yet." So not definitive. That he says, "Oh yeah, I expect to be back next year, no doubt about it." Joe Kelly looks sharp, back-to-back Ks.
Well, Joe Kelly's got that good fastball, but there you see an outstanding curveball. Starts up around the shoulders, breaks down below the knees. You can couple that with the fastball with good velocity, his changeup, and a very confident pitcher on the mound when you look at Joe Kelly.
Marlins pitcher Henderson Alvarez has a no-hitter against the Detroit Tigers through 7 innings. Uh-oh, I said it. That's all right. It's their guy. As I've stated before, I'll state it again. If the Cubs were throwing a no-hitter against the Cardinals, I might say it 30 different times in a half inning. If Joe Kelly and the Cardinals are throwing a no-hitter today, a fly ball out to left. I think it makes it fun. As Robinson puts it away. And that's 3, Shane. 1, 2, 3 for Joe Kelly. Picking up your postseason tickets, now is the time to do it. Cardinals.com/tickets. They keep some tickets on the side for those that sign up for season tickets for next year. That's another way to do it. So if you're looking to go to postseason, one of the best ways to do it is to get season tickets for next season. Here's Tony Cruz. Had some people tweet at me at Danny Mac TV. We get all the great suggestions on Twitter, as you guys know. But I think it's an interesting point. We were talking about Chris Carpenter and a way to honor him. Take a page from the Yankees and maybe let him make a pitching change, as Joe Girardi did get permission to use Andy Pettitte, Derek Jeter to make the pitching change for Mariano Rivera the other day. But I think something special would be awfully neat to see Chris Carpenter be acknowledged by these fans one last time. And he's in there somewhere behind the group of people there, David Freese and Cardinal medical staff.
The only complexity with Chris Carpenter is he has not had any stated clear position of not pitching again, despite despite the way it feels and appears. Dan, you want to make sure obviously that he's on board with that. Maybe that's a way to make the statement if he is in fact at that point, but there's maybe still a piece of him that thinks that something miraculous can happen this winter and all of a sudden he can throw without experiencing the issues that he has, which are fairly severe, it appears, and so maybe that lack of finality plays in.
2 balls and 1 strike on Daniel Descalso. No score here in St. Louis. Well, we know the playoff teams in the National League. We don't know about the American League just yet. Wild card still could be decided today, tomorrow. As Descalso pops it up to the left side. Out of play as Donnie Murphy gave chase. Texas and Tampa Bay have to win. Cleveland is assured of at least having a play-in game for a play-in game. Tampa Bay leading 7-0 in their game. Cleveland, bottom of the second, leading Minnesota 2-0. As Descalso hits it sharply, but Rizzo is there to Samardzija. You know he's not going to drop it on the run. If the Cardinals would face Dusty Baker and the Cincinnati Reds. This year the Cardinals win 11 of the 19 games they split in Cincinnati. 6 of 9 they won at home. Bruce and Latos very good against St. Louis.
And Latos would be the starter, as Cueto would pitch the in game.
Line shot and caught by off the bat of Robinson and caught by Murphy. No score after 2 here at Busch Stadium. Schnucks, your neighborhood hometown grocer, and by 5-Hour Energy Shots. Joe Kelly's second inning of work in relief of Jake Westbrook.
fastball that is taken low and away. The catcher, Boscan, then Samardzija and Castro. We're underway here in the top of the third, the final game of the regular season. Big gap in left center. Atlanta's now added to their lead. They played it a couple of more. 5-0 in the bottom of the third against the Phillies.
And Tehran's pitching in that game. Very tough young right-hander.
Taken there by Adams.
Pretty amazing end to that game yesterday between the Phillies and the Atlanta Braves. Braves, Chris Johnson at the plate, tying run. Hit a ball into the hole. Jimmy Rollins made a diving play, threw him out, head first slide, close play. Braves lose, and then a few moments later, Terry Pendleton and Chris Johnson in a little shoving match in the dugout because Johnson had thrown his helmet and bounced
Twice.
up and hit Pendleton.
Yeah, shoving match.
And neither player nor coach talking much about it today, but certainly feel the tension going on in that moment if you watch the video of it.
Very good athlete here at the plate. 1 ball, 1 strike. Jeff Samardzija, outstanding football player at the University of Notre Dame.
All-American.
School record 179 catches, over 2,500 yards receiving, 27 touchdowns. Gave up football for baseball. Cubs gave him a big signing bonus. Long contract to sway him away from football.
And he fell to the 5th round. He would have been a first rounder, but people were gun shy, thinking he was going to go to football.
A 2-2 pitch. And goodbye. Strikeout. Third of the afternoon for Joe Kelly. Fox Sports Midwest joining with the Cardinals for the official pep rallies before all playoff home games. Rallies will start 2.5 hours before any home game at Ballpark Village. So check out Cardinals.com, and they've got all the details on the postseason pep rallies before the games. And after the games, tune in to Fox Sports, as we'll have all that postseason coverage for you on our postgame shows. Here's Starlin Castro, 2 outs, nobody on. Bittersweet day, the final game of the regular season. Cubs packing up. They head home, done for the winter. For the Cardinals, excited to wrap up regular season play and head into the postseason.
Cardinals want to say hi to Betty Smith, who's 96 years young. She never misses one of our telecasts, so hello, Betty.
1-1 pitch. 1-2.
Joe Kelly looks sharp, doesn't he?
Very good.
Not really much of a change of routine for Joe Kelly. Just started an inning later. I'm sure he did his normal warm-up as if he was starting the game, and kind of intriguing again what the Cardinals are going to do as far as their 4 starters in the playoffs. We've had no indication yet who they would be. Obviously Wainwright will be the starter in game 1. Mike Matheny has given us that much, but beyond that I think they're still thinking it through.
Nasty breaking ball there. Castro was frozen. That's 4 strikeouts, 2 innings of work for Joe Kelly. Series. Dodgers, Reds, Pirates, AT&T Twitter poll, our final Twitter poll of the season. Colton Wong digs in for the first time. Third baseman off the line, even with the bag. I want to thank Tom Mee, our longtime director, for all his hard work. Mike Helling, longtime producer. Those two do just such a fabulous job for all of us. Popped up, Samardzija makes the play. Brian McCann, jack of all trades down there. Danny Martinez, Keith Olbermann, and Keith O'Brien. That tandem is, well, there's a love of Cardinal baseball, and you'll find it with Keith Olbermann and Keith O'Brien.
Amazing how they work together.
Tim Garcia, Dawn up here. Kim Eberle, Patrick Eberle. All the men and women on our crew, and it takes a lot of people to make this go and to make this happen, to get the sights and the sounds to you at home. And most importantly, we want to say thank you to the fans. Hear it all the time, best fans in baseball. We're not just saying it. I think they're the best fans in sports. You truly are. Make this what it is. The players, coaches, the managers, they come and go. The players will stay here for a long time, and they give us the excitement. But the fans, they never leave. It's so important to what we all do and love. So thank you very, very much for tuning in night after night, supporting us, coming through the turnstiles, and what you do for us at Fox Sports Midwest. Second best ratings in all of baseball. I'll say it again, the best fans in the game. 1-2 pitch. And when we say that, we mean it. We see all the different stadiums and the fans and the responses and the cheers and the boos and how players are treated, and it's unique, it's different, it's special here in St. Louis. Deep right, and Kelly's on the move, on his way to second, standing up.
There you go, Joe Kelly. You know he can run. Or you thought about maybe a triple, but you don't want to run into an out. High fastball gets on top of it. They were playing relatively shallow. They did have him turned around to play to right field, but a one-out double. And let's see if Carpenter can't drive him in.
Nice time for hit number 200.
And what Cardinal hitters have done with runners in scoring position has been historic.
This would be the time to do it. Hit number 200 and drive in a run.
How about trade places with him?
One-0 pitch. You don't think these fans know he's sitting on 199? You know they do. Outfield straight away. Carpenter grounded out to second. First time up. 1-1 pitch.
Dan, what I love about the fan experience that you're talking about and just how important they are to Cardinal baseball, it isn't just watching us on Fox Sports Midwest, being out here at the ballpark. It's what the players feel, what we feel, just going anywhere in the community. I mean, this is a Cardinal baseball town, region, and it is just so much fun to see everybody dressed in red, no matter where you go, talking about Cardinal baseball. And I think it's part of the fun, part of the community, part of the magic.
Carpenter's had his troubles against Samardzija. He's just 2 for 11. 3 for 12 sounds a lot better.
2-2 the count. I've been pretty good with predictions. here down the stretch. Hit number 200's coming up right here.
Oh,
come on, Matt, please help me. Check swing. Don't you dare ring him up. Good job. That's Mark Carlson, one of the best in the game down at third.
It seems you have a little invested in this now.
Big time.
Notice, Ricky, he didn't tell us about too many of those predictions that he said have gone all right.
He has been. I mean, give him a little credit, Al.
Thank you, Rick.
A little.
He's hot in September.
3-2. Almost a base hit.
Oh, close play.
Man, that was close.
Did you say base hit or move the runner over?
Great job. That doesn't count. Next at bat, he'll get it. I'm out of here. See you guys in April. Follow this postseason live. iPhone, iPad, Android, BlackBerry 10, MLB at Bat to follow the postseason.
If you were perfect, there'd be no living with you.
Oh. There's so many things I'd like to say, but I'm going to move on because I will get in trouble.
Oh, you're getting me choked up.
Phillies come up with a
Emotional.
4 spot. Make that game a little bit closer down in Atlanta. 5-4 now with the Phillies still batting.
Here's a 1-0 John Jay. Outside. 3-0. Three and two on Jay with 2 outs and a runner at third. No score.
Backdoor off-speed pitch is getting a little trouble, but 7 for 16 against the Marges, John Jay.
It out of play.
I have to say a solid season for John Jay defensively. He set that record early in the season for most consecutive errorless games in center field. And he surpassed really one of the all-time greats in Curt Flood. And his average, not around 300 where we're used to, but he's got a high number of RBIs. I think he's been a key part of this team.
Jay, base hit to the right, and the Cardinals have the lead. 2 outs, runners in scoring position. The Cardinals have done it all season long. Why not do it on the final day? 1-0 Cardinals.
And another John Jay RBI, 67. And it scores Joe Kelly. That a 1-out double. Gets jammed, but just strong enough to get it over the second baseman's head to score. Joe Kelly.
Switch hitter Carlos Beltran struck out back in the first. Maybe playing in his final Cardinal regular season game. Jay is running, and a throw down to second. Doesn't slide. He's tagged out, and the inning comes to a close. Jay the RBI with 2 outs to score Kelly. Cardinals on top.
How about Henderson Alvarez? 9 no-hit innings, 0-0 tie as the Marlins come to bat, needing a run to win it against Detroit.
Wow.
How about that? There's Jake Westbrook, who made the start today. Again, if you're just joining us, and big game today. Cardinals lead for the best overall record by a game over Atlanta. Westbrook goes 1 inning, excuse me, and Joe Kelly now pitching into his 3rd inning. Yadier Molina penciled into the starting lineup, goes out, catches the warm-up tosses by Westbrook, and then replaced by Tony Cruz. So he's out of this game. Holiday did not start. His average at an even 300. Here's Logan Watkins. Showing bunt. Looks at a ball. The Cardinals have a 1-run lead, a 2-out RBI base hit. John Jay to score Joe Kelly.
Joe Kelly is really doing the job on the mound. 6 up, 6 downs, 4 strikeouts.
Popped up to the left side. Carpenter is over and overruns it. Rare misplay by the Cardinal third baseman today.
Well, he does the right thing first, gets to the rail, but overruns it as the ball comes back towards the field of play on a pop-up behind home plate and to the third base side. The spin on the ball is often going to take the ball back into the field of play, and he just misjudged it a bit. That's not going to happen very often with him.
1-1 pitch. Changeup in there for a strike. Boy, how good has Joe Kelly looked here today? Very sharp curveball, good changeup, which has been a signature pitch for him. He throws in the mid-90s. So if the Cardinals win, Dodgers would get the Braves. Cardinals then get the winner of Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Two pitch. In the air into shallow right. Wong called off by Beltran.
And it's possible, Dan, that would be the scenario even if the Cardinals don't win this game, depending upon what goes on in Atlanta.
Right. And the Braves with a 1-run lead, as Pat told you moments ago.
Nice to be able to control your own destiny, though, isn't it?
So Henderson Alvarez with a no-hitter through 9, which is rare in itself. And then you think about over the last 6 seasons, only one pitcher has gone into the 10th with 10 shutout innings. That was Cliff Lee in 2012.
Way back when, Harvey Haddix, I believe, had 10 no-hit innings, and then he lost the ball game.
Marlins do have a couple of runners on in that game. Chance to score in the bottom of the 9th. I can't recall that ever happening before, where a team needed to score to complete a no-hitter. I
was looking for it,
and
I
picture that.
I don't see it. That's to the backstop. And a ground ball. Colt Wong is there, moving to his left, and he makes the play. 2 down. Put both you guys on the spot here with Shearholtz getting set to dig in. Game 1 starter, I think we all would agree, would be Adam Wainwright. Game 2, what happens then?
The Reds have lost. Latos was injured. He won't be available for the wild card game. So Cueto had already been announced that he will start that game on Tuesday in Pittsburgh. But if they lose Latos on top of it.
In the air, left center, and a diving attempt from Robinson. One hops over the wall, then Shearholtz has a double. Great effort there by Shane Robinson. So, Rick, I'll ask you.
Shelby Miller, I would say, is the answer to that in my mind, because, again, the crowd appreciating the effort of Shane Robinson as he really laid out to try to make that play for Joe Kelly. We'll take a look at it again. Pitch down and away, taken the other way, and there's the effort by Shane Robinson, who went a long way just to get close to that ball. I think Shelby Miller pitching at home is what makes the most sense to me. We've talked about it, Dan. You centered on that in early September, that the Cardinals are going to have to figure out who they pitch where based on splits. You can't ignore them. And in Shelby Miller's case, he's certainly good enough to pitch game 2, so why not have him throw that second game?
Well, and you think about it, he's won 10 of his 15 games at home.
Little flare down the left field line. Carpenter this time makes the play. To be a part of the action. Cardinals.com/spring travel. They have all kinds of different packages for you. Going back to what we were talking about before, Mike Matheny on the phone. We'll see if he'll go to his bullpen next inning. Good outing by Joe Kelly, but Lance Lynn has been very good here at home. Shelby Miller, Michael Wacha maybe in that conversation. You never know. You can have a situation where 12 pitchers, it looks like that is what they'll do for the best of 5. And in that regard, then you keep 8 relievers, the 4 starters. So we'll see how it all unfolds as that's yanked foul.
I think you have 2 guys that doesn't seem like the road bothers them, and that's Wainwright and Kelly. But it seems like you don't want to pitch Lynn or Wacha or Shelby on the road. Another reason why home field advantage is very important to you.
You mentioned the Cardinals, Dan, having 8 relievers. One of them will be a 5th starter who's moved to the bullpen. So we still are not sure who they're going to take for that bullpen, but there's going to be some guys left off that you want to have on there. Guys that have made significant contributions, and not going to be an easy decision. Mike Matheny saying before the game that he has his roster set from a player standpoint for sure. And then he was pressed, who are they? And he said, next question.
Mejica, does he make that postseason roster? That's a big question right now for Mike Matheny. And after yesterday, you have to wonder where he's at. I mean, this is as results driven as it gets.
Yeah.
And you say thank you for getting us to this point. But if you're not right, you're not right.
Mike seems to be very, very loyal to people, but you're talking about a very tough decision.
Beltran pops it up left side. Donnie Murphy. And Carlos is hitless today, 0 for 2. Difference makers this year brought to you by BJC Healthcare. Wainwright 19 wins. Mejica 37 saves emerging from nowhere. Beltran the 24 home runs. And Craig 3 shy of 100.
Interesting with today's baseball and how explosive the offenses can be. Cardinals could win 97 games without a 25 home run man and a 100 RBI man. And the Cardinals do have precedent of a regular season leader in saves losing that job in postseason. Go back to 2011, you had Salas had 24 saves, and Mott took over. And also, you know, how about Isringhausen and Wainwright in 06?
And Jeff Lottie and Todd Worrell in 1985. So maybe more precedents than just the last few years. And the hot hand you go with. At this point, it's certainly Trevor Rosenthal. He's the guy that I think everybody has the most confidence in the ninth inning, and he's deserved that, and he's responded well to the few opportunities he's had the last couple of weeks. And it's just such a tough thing to figure out what to do with the rest of the makeup. And I think one of the questions is, do you want to have 3 left-handers or not? And could you possibly consider Mujica like a lefty because his changeup works pretty well against left-handed batters? I think that's an open door there and an open question for Mike Matheny.
The Miami Marlins have just won their game. Bases loaded, I believe. Wild pitch. No hitter intact. They win it. That's how they finish their season. Unbelievable.
And there's more no hitters thrown in September and April than any other months.
Oh,
April, you might have a pitcher that's ahead of the hitters. In September is because you get a lot of the call-ups and maybe an inferior lineup you're going through.
How cool is that? They finish up their season with a no-hitter and win it by scoring a walk-off win with a wild pitch. 1-0 over Detroit. Slapped the other way for Adams. He's doing that more and more. Makes the turnaround first, on his way to second base, and in with a double.
Dan, when he does that, he's going to make himself so much more valuable. When you start utilizing the whole field, hit the ball where it's pitched, especially when they put those shifts on. You know, and of course, he's having a tremendous month. Look at this sinking action right there. Just takes it off the ground down in the left field corner. Has a little trouble with it, Bogasevic, but it wasn't going to change the fact it was going to be the 14th double of the year for Matt Adams.
You know, in the brief history of the Marlins, that's now 5 no-hitters. 5.
And you mentioned it, but to accent the point, he did it against the Detroit Tigers. Fairly decent team, would you say?
Very good hitting team. I wonder who is in that lineup final day of the season. Do you play a Fielder and
one at bat
Cabrera?
One at bat for Fielder, no Cabrera. They did have Peralta in the lineup. So some of their regulars, some of them sat.
How about that question, guys? Peralta, you know, who's just now coming back after serving his suspension.
Intriguing. I know where you're going with that, Al.
I mean,
you've got an all-star caliber shortstop that's been replaced by a terrific glove man that they have in the trade that they made, not knowing what would happen with those involved with biogenesis. It's Johnny Peralta. And Dave Dombrowski has come out and said, nope, Iglesias is our shortstop, and that's who we're going with down the stretch. And into postseason. As Cruz hits it out of play, 1-2.
think that's a fascinating question that deals with team chemistry beyond just ability. You know, how does a team react to a guy that disappointed all of his teammates by doing what he did, then coming back? Pretty risky to play him.
Cruz late with that swing, and he strikes out.
Kind of like last season with Melky Cabrera. Giants just said goodbye.
The Bacon Habanero Ranch Quarter Pounder is topped with white cheddar, thick cut applewood smoked bacon, tomato, leaf lettuce, and a spicy, cool habanero ranch sauce, all on a bakery style bun. It's mouthwatering for a reason, and it's only at McDonald's. Two outs and a runner at second as Descalso shoots one out to deep right center field. This ball gets down. One hops off the wall. Adams scores. Descalso, a 2-out RBI base hit to make it 2-0 Cardinals. Both runs today scored with 2 outs.
Well, that's been a theme of this 2013 Cardinals, is how effective they are with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. They just are doing a tremendous job right there. You can imagine how many managers think they're going to get out of an inning, and then the Cardinals pull the magic.
Another example, too, guys, of the Cardinals scoring with the extra base hit. Talked about it not being a power team in one way, not a lot of home runs, but 3 doubles here this afternoon. That's the difference.
Cardinals are first in runs in the National League and first in doubles. First in RBIs. And first in on-base percentage.
2-1 count to Shane Robinson, lined out to third. First time up, 3-1 with 2 outs and a runner at second base. Samardzija already up to 71 pitches here today. Cardinals have hit 3 doubles. That's been another theme of this team, the doubles that they have piled up this year. In particular, Yadier Molina setting the catching record in St. Louis with doubles, passing Ted Simmons. Matt Carpenter has taken over many categories as a leadoff man and second baseman, what he's done offensively. When you pass Stan the Man, most doubles hit by a left-handed hitter in Cardinals history, that's quite the statement. Up the middle, base hit. Here comes Descalso. He'll score. Robinson makes it 3-0.
That's an RBI in 4 straight starts for Shane Robinson, who's just kind of a hitting machine.
One for 2, and remember the first time up he lined hard to the third baseman.
Here's Colton Wong. And that's a base hit the other way. Good to see Colton pick up a hit. It has not been easy for him since he's come up to the big club. He's looked good defensively, but has not hit well since he's come up.
With that pitch, up a little bit over the middle of the plate. Just went with it and guided it towards left field. So 3 consecutive hits and 4 in the inning. Get a visit by the pitching coach, Chris Bosio.
Well, today is a very special day in Cardinals history. It's the 50th anniversary of Stan the Man's final game with the St. Louis Cardinals. 50 years ago, Stan the Man bid farewell. The year that we celebrate number 6, his life, his legacy. Today we finish up the regular season remembering 50 years ago, Stan the Man, the greatest Cardinal of them all, played in his final baseball game.
And in that game, he went 2 for 3 with an RBI.
Wouldn't expect anything else, would you?
Exactly. Not only just such a tremendous player, but just the man that he was off the field. How he carried himself. I once said I thought it would be torture for Stan, but I thought every major league player should spend a week with Stan, learn how to treat the fans and how to act off the field. I don't know if Stan wanted that cursed, but.
Well, the Cardinals, you know what they've done? They've actually started with their 2009 draft class a program that they call the Cardinal Way, so to speak. And it's about how you behave both on and off the field, the right way to play the game. As Kelly hits it out to left. And just this past week, they had the graduating class of that program. So neat stuff that the Cardinals are doing both on and off the field. Trying to emulate the greatest Cardinal of them all. Images from his final game. Stan the Man. Three 0. Cardinals with the lead as we have our postseason coverage coming up. Coverage on FoxSportsMidwest.com as well. Missouri Lottery Cardinals live after every postseason game. Pat Parrish, Jim Hayes, Al and Rick will be with you. And I'll be checking it out from my couch. Andy Bennis will be a part of postseason coverage, as well as Jimmy Ballgame, Jimmy Edmonds.
Beltran's being replaced by Chambers. to see Carlos back.
My gut would tell me, Al, no. I think they're going to give Oscar Taveras every possible way to make the team next year. You've seen the emergence of Adams.
Let me ask you this.
He had issues. You'd have Craig that could play in the outfield as well.
Let me ask you this. Do you tender, I mean, do you make the qualifying offer? I would say yes.
Yeah. If he takes it, great. If not, you pick up the pick.
What he's done the last 2 years warrants that offer, and like you said, if he takes it, it's a 1-year offer, and you say thank you.
1-1 pitch. Oh, watch out! A breaking ball that slipped out of the hand, it looked like, to Donnie Murphy. 2 balls and 1 strike. I think you clearly applaud Carlos Beltran for everything he's done for the St. Louis Cardinals. You've gotten 2 All-Star seasons out of him. If he wants to come back, you find a way to make it happen. Playing time would be the issue. He's got to agree to what would be, we think right now, innings curtailed because of the emergence of Taveras, Oscar Taveras. And the other thing, if you're John Mozeliak, you're kind of on a slippery slope. You've got a guy that's an aging player. You do have emerging young players, and tricky business when you start handing out multi-million-dollar deals to guys that you may have squeezed a ton out of the last 2 years, and you're just not sure what's left in the tank.
Well, that's why I say you don't have to do a multi-year contract. You make the qualifying.
That's why I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, and in my mind, Taveras isn't ready yet. He didn't play enough at AAA, and it's my understanding that, yes, he's a significant hitting prospect, but the rest of his game is lacking.
Played center field this year. Is he a everyday center fielder? Defense, time will tell.
But what I'm hearing is that those aspects of it in the field, running the bases, doing different things, he's not ready yet. Question is, Colton Wong ready?
2-2 swung on and missed by Murphy. 5 strikeouts for Joe Kelly. Again, those playoff tickets are available right now. Cardinals.com/tickets. And a reminder, with a piece of paper with the official word of playoff tickets. Not many are available right now. So if you're thinking about doing it, you might want to click on the computer at Cardinals.com and get those tickets.
They will not be around very long.
Nope.
Talking about Beltran and Wong and where does everybody fit. You know, guys, I think about being in spring training, and at one point the Cardinals had 9 guys that you could envision being in the starting rotation, and then a couple of months later you're looking to fill some holes. You really just can't have enough talent, and I think even in the outfield position the at-bats will come if Beltran does decide to stay here. You deal with injuries, you deal with performance issues for a while.
Nice hands here by Cole Wong. The Cardinals would face Atlanta. This would be in the championship series. Braves won the season series 4-3. Remember, they won all 3 at home. It was right after the break. They swept St. Louis. And Chris Johnson, very good year, the former Astro, and now with the Atlanta Braves, as he filled in quite well for Chipper Jones after his retirement. .476 average. Kimbrel, 4 saves, but Cardinals shouldn't feel too bad about that. Kimbrel was saving everything this year. I thought it was interesting, though, and we had the pregame show feature. No saves for Kimbrel in postseason play. Carpenter makes that play. He'll lead it off. Look for a hit number 200 when we come back. Charter high-speed pitch. Samardzija hit 96. Kelly has hit 97. Charter high-speed pitch of the game. And here's Carpenter and a chance at hit number 200.
Carpenter's been so good this year, but slowing down on this homestand. Go for his last 6 at 3 for 19 on the homestand. I think feeling a little pressure trying to get number 200, so get it right now.
Inside to Carpenter.
Predictions, Dan?
He does it right here.
Dan's always right.
He's about 5 for 6 in September.
Thank you, Rick. It's amazing to have somebody sit next to you and support you.
Well, I've been keeping track. Now, we could talk about your first half totals if you'd like.
That was a little rough.
Well, the statistics don't lie.
No. 1-1 pitch. Carpenter breaks his bat. Rizzo, another fantastic play to rob Carpenter of that hit. And it stays at 199. I really want to see Matt Carpenter, along with everybody else, get hit number 200. He's had such a great year.
But look at the break Rizzo gets on this ball.
Yeah, I mean, that's
some range.
Tough play. At this level, you don't see that every day, Al.
The viewers have to understand, we write a winning script every night. They don't always follow
our scripts,
but our
definitely
scripts
go off script a lot. That's all right.
Well, John Jay already has 8 hits in my ledger.
And don't you think that hitting coaches and managers feel the same way about that? I mean, you have a game plan every day, and then you look up, and there's some days, well, it's not even close to what the idea was because it still has to be done on the field. That's why when we had that celebration, when the Cardinals clinched, you saw the coaches standing in the dugout, letting them celebrate on the field. I thought that was a pretty cool moment. I think they were acknowledging the fact that this is a player's game. They're the ones that perform. We can predict, we can talk about them, and we can overanalyze them and talk numbers and all that. But it's still their heart and their careers on the line every time they're at the plate and on the mound. And Mike Matheny and his staff acknowledge that. They let them have their fun, and then they joined them.
Two. Jay waves at it, strikes out. For today for Samardzija. What's on tap? What's next for us on Fox Sports Midwest? Our next game, baseball-wise, spring training 2014. Our Budweiser What's on Tap. We had more games this year than we ever did, and my understanding is we're going to try to add to that.
That's
hopefully,
what I was going to
spring
ask,
training.
because that's what the talk was, that we'd add to it and have more telecasts, and we're all for it.
Don't have the starters yet for that February 28th game. I'm thinking it might be Waka and Fernandez.
Oh, so you're penciling in Waka to be potentially the opening day starter for 2014. All right, thanks a lot, Mike Matheny.
2014 spring training.
But if you're going to start him on the 28th of February, I've got him penciled in with off days and certain.
You've already done that?
Yeah.
Wow.
That puts him right in line to begin the season. There you go again, predicting everything.
All right, who's the home opener?
Well, that's going to fall on Waino's spot. I got that
I
one.
would say it is.
Because we will open on the road, and part of that is to give a little more time for Ballpark Village, which we should open on the home opener. That's going to be something.
Now, can I give you a little scoop here potentially
Please.
for next year?
Please.
We know we have Boston
Is this a
coming
truthful
in.
one, or
yeah,
is it,
no,
okay.
this is true. This Chambers. Well, you know what? This is called a tease.
Oh wow! Can't wait for the scoops.
Big scoop coming up.
Stay right here.
Because it might happen, it might not, but I'll throw it out there. I got 3 hours to fill. Why not? let's give you our whip package, brought to you by Head & Shoulders. Who wants it? You or Al?
I got it. 5 strikeouts for Joe Kelly. He's been very good at pounding the strike zone, and he's shown the good curveball. Al pointed it out early on. Curveball's been sharp, breaking down. And Joe Kelly, be interesting to see what his role will be in the postseason, but what he's doing here this afternoon makes you think he's going to be an integral part of something. Pounding the zone, 32 strikes out of 44 pitches. Can't get much better than that.
So he allowed 1 hit, 1 base runner in his 4 innings of work, and possibly his last.
Al, you're holding me up from a big announcement.
I was going to say, come on, Scoop.
Well, I'm not sure if this is going to happen or not. However,
now wait a minute.
Yeah, it's a really important announcement.
I was on the edge of my seat.
You know what, the heck with it then. I was going to go out on a limb and deliver some pertinent information.
We'll behave.
How about you behave?
I'm listening.
Horton, I can keep in check. You, I'm not sure. Well, 1964 was a pretty good year.
Yes.
Okay, next year is 2014. So you get the 64 team, 2014. Okay.
50 years.
Carry the 0.
Right, 50 years. So the Cardinals are looking into potentially bringing back the 1964 team next year and having a major celebration and making a big weekend concerning that team. And that is the scoop that I have for you. And I thought you would enjoy that, but apparently I just saw a couple people back here doing backflips. It's okay, guys. I got a couple more later. So it's a big deal. 64, that team coming back. I mean, a celebration doing 3 days. I'm in.
Hey, Rick.
Sign me up.
Did he know that they've been doing these kind of things for decades?
Let me ask him.
Bringing back teams like this?
You want me to ask him?
Oh, yeah, ask him.
Dan Al wants to know.
Here's Castro.
But that's a big one, though, is what you're trying to say. Let me defend you, kind of.
I mean, come on. Talk about some of the biggest names in Cardinal history coming back. Hold on, guys. My mom just called. Thanks, Mom. I love you, too. Yeah, I know it was a big scoop. Thanks. All right, I'll let her know. Thanks, guys.
Gibson, Cepeda, Brock.
Yeah. Get him back
McCarver.
Here. Euchre?
Shannon.
Euchre.
Euchre was on that, yeah.
I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but I just threw it out there.
Well, it better now.
Julian Javier.
Ooh, that skipped right over the bag. Cardinals, Fox Sports, and the state of Missouri teaming up to help you stop smoking. For more information, call the Quit line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW. You guys both seem to be stunned with that news I brought you.
I'm researching.
There's Logan Watkins.
Make sure we didn't miss some fun people that were on that 64 team. We don't want anybody to feel left out.
Oh, there's people believe. I shouldn't say.
Now you could say that about a lot of things you say.
Yeah. I'm just kind of thinking of a few of the people that have passed away that, unfortunately, wouldn't be able to honor them.
A good friend that was on that team, Charlie James.
Yep.
Dal Maxville.
My understanding is, though, the Cardinals have already contacted some of those that have not been back in St. Louis for years and trying to get them to come back to celebrate. And it's 50 years of one of the greatest teams Cardinals have ever had, 1964.
That's what's great about Cardinal history is every few years you can remember you're going to have the 67, 68 team. There's such a rich tradition 27 times going to the postseason. 11 world championships. Hopefully we can get number 12 this year.
Well hit out to center. Watkins had to go down to get it. One hops off the wall. 2-out double for Logan Watkins.
Notice that all 3 hits are all doubles.
4 days away. They'll drop the puck. Upcoming hockey season. Predators and Blues at 6. John Kelly, Bernie Federko, and Darren Pang will bring you the action. Pat Paris will be a part of that. 4 days until opening night. Here's Rizzo, 3-run lead for St. Louis here in the top of the 6th. 192 average with runners in scoring position. Big gap in right center field.
One of the big problems with the Cubs this year is overall they're a .219 season batting average with runners in scoring position, the lowest in the majors. Cardinals are well over 100 points better, the best in the majors.
Here's a 1-1 pitch to Rizzo. Out to center. That'll stay in the ballpark. Shading from the sun. It's John Jay. Great work today by Joe Kelly. Pre and post game shows done by Pat Paris. Here's Matt Adams. Adams with a fly ball out to shallow left. This is going to drop. Adams with a base hit. It's the Cubs.
Kind of like everyone looking at each other saying who wants it.
Didn't seem like any of them did.
Yeah.
I'm not saying an easy play, but
right. It's tough play.
But they all start to pull up at the same time, and it drops right between them. I'd say the toughest play maybe for Murphy.
Yeah, and you saw him pull up first. He's looking into the high sky, but You know, Bogusevic kind of looked at the infielders. Sometimes it's a good angle for a shortstop to go back on a ball like that, but neither one of them, or none of them took charge, and falls in for the second hit for Matt Adams.
Joe Strom, the VP of ticket sales, just handed us an attendance summary and what's happened this year. We'll give you some of those numbers as Cruz takes a pitch low. Today it's the 25th sold out crowd this year, 44,808. That brings up the total attendance this year to 3.3. So 3,369,769. The average attendance was over 41,000. As Cruz hits into a double play for 6-3. It's the 5th highest attendance in franchise history, the 10th straight season with 3 million or more fans. They've done that for the 17th time in franchise history. Nicely done by the fans. Single game tickets, we know that they are on sale, but want to remind you about Feeding America. Fox Sports supports our 2013 charities, and this one we've supported all summer long is Feeding America. And you can learn how to donate, get involved at feedingamerica.org/Fox Sports.
That's amazing when you think of that. 41,602 is the average attendance this season. Remember, this is a smaller ballpark than Busch Stadium 2. 17th time the franchise has drawn over 3 million. 10 straight, 15 out of the past 16. You'd have to think the strike year of '84 would be the one exception.
Nice play. Darwin Barney could be on his way to his second consecutive Gold Glove. Quite sold out. They will be here in the next 24 to 48 hours. So log on to Cardinals.com/tickets and get those now. Cardinals.com/tickets. Special thanks to our friend Dan Hyatt for all his great research and notes and time and effort that he puts into each and every telecast that we have. The DeWitts certainly enjoying the great run of baseball that we have had here.
It's an incredible run. 3 straight appearances. What is it? 11 times in the 18 years under the current ownership group headed by Bill DeWitt Jr.
I love the conversation with Jim Hayes in our pregame show where Jim asked him, when you're at the ballpark and you're sitting in your seats, are you a businessman first or a fan first? And his answer was, I've always been a fan. my entire life I've been a fan of the game of baseball, and that's really what comes first. I mean, that's a pretty neat statement. Your owner really loves the product as much as he does.
And that is pulled down into the corner and right. Nate Shearholt's on his way to second base.
All 4 hits the Cubs today have been doubles. It's the first time a leadoff double, and Shearholt's is second.
He's had a good year for the Cubs.
Yeah, 21 home runs. You know, I mean, that a career high by significant margin. Remember, he was a member of the Giants in a couple championship teams. Signed as a free agent. This is his first year with the Cubs.
Here is Ryan Sweeney. Now that story about Mr. DeWitt, his uniform being used in Major League Baseball, really is one of the great stories, and it dates back in so much history.
A little trivia question: what owner has his uniform is in the Hall of Fame? And it's Bill DeWitt Jr. His dad owned the St. Louis Browns, and he was the bat boy for the Browns. And when they signed Eddie Goodell, the midget, you know, he didn't have a uniform for him, so they had to use Bill DeWitt's uniform. Eddie Goodell wore that in the game. It was kind of a little gimmick. He walked, and Commissioner of Baseball kind of voided the contract after that, and so thereabouts, his uniform's in the Hall of Fame.
One of the great all-time pictures is Eddie Goodell at the plate, and the catcher trying to put his glove over a strike zone, and I just love that shot.
Hit to the right side by Sweeney for the first out. Also a shot of Mr. DeWitt. He's sitting in the seats down there right by the Cardinal dugout with himself as a young boy and Babe Ruth. Amazing picture. Amazing family history in the game of baseball with the DeWitts.
Billy, the Cardinal president, mom in the middle, and the nicest people, the DeWitts. They just really are truly, genuinely nice people.
One out, and that's hit out of play by Donnie Murphy. The lefty Randy Choate getting loose in the pen.
An addendum to that story is
Venus.
Addendum to that story, the late Jim Delsing pitch ran for Eddie Goodell. And Jay Delsing, the local golf pro for many years and good friend, had a chance to see him this week, and talks about how he just grew up with the love of baseball because of his dad. How could you not? I think that's in the DeWitt DNA as well.
Murphy is hit by the pitch.
Not that he wanted to do it, but it does set up the double play. Bring in Seth.
How about what Manus did ending the ball game yesterday with a double play?
All just running in on Murphy. He struck him out twice, so I don't think he really wanted to do that. Bogasevic.
It's amazing the amount of appearances Manus has already piled up in his brief career, and didn't even start with the club out of spring training.
I mean, was it about May, don't you think he came? And he's already made 66 appearances. Yeah, this game is still in jeopardy.
I'll say. And Mike is going with the lefty.
Yeah,
here.
He's going to bring in Randy Choate.
fans least want to face in the division series. 61%. The Dodgers.
That means this is the game that the Cardinals most want to win as far as our fans are concerned. The Cardinals and the Dodgers this year. The Dodgers won the season series 4-3. The Dodgers actually winning 3 out of 4 here in St. Louis. Kershaw has been handled fairly well by the Cardinals. Had a hard time dealing with Crawford.
Remember also the Dodgers road record is 45-36. They have the best road record of any of the qualifying teams.
Choate comes in. How about a double play? Out at second. Double play. 6-4-3 on the double play. This is why this game, again, is so important. The Cardinals win. They have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And right now, they are 6 outs away from a home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Who would have thought that even a month ago, Rick?
I would not have thought that.
Me neither.
Certainly the Cardinals believed in themselves and continued to play well down the stretch. Better than well. I mean, perfect on this last homestand so far. Hector Rondon, our Chevy, called to the bullpen. Very nice outing for Joe Kelly. 5 1/3 innings, just 3 hits, no runs, 0 walks for Joe Kelly. Again, just pounding the strike zone, and Randy Choate next to him bailed him out of that last inning with a double play. The one batter that he faced. It'll be interesting to see again how Mike Matheny handles innings 8 and 9 in this game that really matters. Now that he has a 3-0 lead, who will he go to in the 8th and 9th?
I think he's going to go to Martinez.
You know, Mike was talking before the game how last year going into the playoffs, it was really established 7, 8, 9 who you had. This year, a much more fluid situation.
That's his buzzword, fluid.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, because then you're not locked in 7, 8, 9. You go with the hot hand. As you guys well know, as Robinson grounds out, baseball is such a long season. You're dealing with the mental aspect of this game, trying to make players comfortable, make them feel wanted, make them fit in the right piece to be that piece of the puzzle. And when you get into postseason play, man, all bets are off. You just ride that hot hand.
Well, we use this analogy a lot, and I think people get tired of it to some degree, but in my mind, it's the perfect analogy for what a baseball season is like. It is a marathon. I mean, you are running a marathon, 162 days. It's a certain kind of run. And then you all get to the end, you all stop for 4 days, and then you do a sprint. And so you've got really two different feels from there. And by the way, in that sprint, some people get to start a little ahead of the other teams because of your record or because of your wild card status. So that sprint is weighted a bit based on how you did in the marathon. But we've seen teams that are good sprinting teams, which are typically teams with good starting pitching and live arms in the bullpen and a hot offense. They can go very far in that little 3-week sprint that happens. And there is a drastic difference. So you've got to ride the hot hand, Dan. I agree with you 100%. And whoever's hot, ride them. Ride them.
No doubt.
And Ricky, don't you feel that from our experience that players know, who is hot?
Oh yeah.
Who should be out there?
Oh, yeah.
And I think most people and players are going to sit there and say that's who you got to go with at crunch time.
John Jay strikes out. Nissan drive of the game. All these great players in the lineup today, but we go with a pitcher. Nissan drive of the game off the bat of Joe Kelly. He's done a little bit of everything here today.
Squared that one up pretty well. That
Sure
pitch up
did.
and away. Hit it a long way. They played him shallow, as you mentioned. Very nice afternoon for Joe Kelly in his relief appearance, which is, I guess, what we have to classify it as.
One inning by Jake Westbrook. Since that time, Joe Kelly until the double play induced by Randy Choate. Here's Brock Peterson with 2 down. I think things are getting a little anxious for Joe Madden and the Rays. They had a lead of 7-0. That's been cut into. It's now 7-6. Rangers have to win. And the Angels have a 1-run lead over them. That's in the 4th. Indians 5-0 over the Twins. That's in the 7th. Game we're keeping an eye on. The Braves have opened up a 10-4 lead against the Phils. And that ball game is in the 6th. Cardinals have finished up with a flourish, a chance to have an unbeaten homestand to finish up the year. And the month of September has been awfully good.
Think about that. Mike Matheny's seen his starting pitching first couple months, best in baseball, and here at the end they're finishing up just that strong.
By the way, check swing and Peterson did not go. If the Cardinals win today and Boston loses, the Cardinals would have the best record in all of Major League Baseball.
How about that?
Well, here it is. Could be the final hope to get to 200 for Matt Carpenter. A little drama here in this 7th inning.
Been a heck of a year no matter what for Chris Carpenter, but he could sure put a punctuation mark on it with his 200th hit.
Get that hit, take him out.
0-1 pitch.
All clap for him.
I'd want to keep him in. 2 close games in jeopardy.
Well, this is, to me, if he's going to get hit number 200, why not do it with 2 strikes? Because this is what he has thrived on all season.
He's hit 352 this month.
Here's the 0-2 in the dirt. 1 ball and 2 strikes on Carpenter. Let's take it inside. 2-2. What very well could be his final shot at hit number 200 of this 2013 season. 2 balls, 2 strikes on Matt Carpenter. Here it comes.
And that one very late, but just fouled it off.
I think he might have been trying to take that the other way. They're way off the line at third base.
Good idea, but you mentioned he's not afraid to get 2 strikes. Works the count deep, trying to find that one pitch he can drive.
The 2-2. Oh.
And of course, you don't want to see him expand his zone just to keep himself up there too. And of course, his teammates could also help out by hitting through the order and around and bring him back up.
A 3-2 pitch. Carpenter spoils it.
I wonder if he's pressing a little bit the last couple of days to try to get that 200th hit.
It'll only be natural.
You bet. Oh for his last 8. Time is now.
3-2 pitch to Carpenter. Strikes out, stuck at 199. 3-0 St. Louis through 7. Some weapons out there in that bullpen. You think about this guy, our Chevy call to the pen, really has emerged here late season. Carlos Martinez, Segrist is out there, and Rosenthal.
Been fun to watch. Those numbers not really indicative of how good he's been lately. And talk about a guy who's on an upswing. Carlos Martinez, one of those guys.
Big time. Seeing him pitch with great confidence lately. He had, in his last time out, just nasty stuff.
I'm just glad I don't have to decide what 12 pitchers to take.
A fly ball lifted into right. Shane Robinson over and makes the catch. Nicely done, Shane Robinson.
Good closing speed. Kind of had played him a little bit to hit to right field, and that's a very tough play. He made look relatively easy.
Rick, he's really a valuable guy coming off the bench because of plays like this. And you think about the Walker no-hitter and the play he made down in the left field corner.
And he can do it from lefty. He can play all three outfield positions.
Exactly.
His arm is decent. His jumps are very, very good, and a much better hitter than I think folks realize. I think you have to kind of watch him on a day-to-day basis. I mean, in college, he could just rake in college. I mean, he was the best hitter in the country. And when you watch him just maybe taking that bat as a pinch hitter, you say, well, he's not a big guy. He doesn't really drive the ball that much, but he's just a hitter. I think he'd hit 285 if he played every day somewhere in the big leagues.
1-0. Breaking ball lifted into right center. There's John Jay. 2 away. Again, those Division Series tickets still available. Cardinals.com/tickets. And a reminder that if you're looking for tickets for the postseason, you can get there by ordering your season tickets for 2014. Get a season ticket plan and you'll have playoff tickets included for this year. Pitch at 99 to Starlin Castro.
We saw Martinez top 100 his last outing.
101.
And when it's that quick, you don't have much time to react.
Here's a question for both of you. Do you get concerned with the youth of the back end of the bullpen in those high leverage situations and guys pitching in games that mean so much?
I think you're concerned about it, but they haven't given you any indication to worry about it.
Remarkable homestand this has been. Only 6 runs allowed in 52 2/3. 6 runs total. 7 walks. That's it. All the strikeouts.
And a lot of the young pitchers have contributed to those numbers that we just saw. And you could ask the same question. Would you be concerned about young pitchers in a pennant race in late September? And I think the Cardinals young players have answered that question. But now the next question, you got to push it a little deeper, a little further. October is a very different month for baseball, and the scrutiny and the tenseness and the pressure. But I agree with Al. I don't think we've seen signs of cracking yet from anybody.
And you could say the same thing about a veteran player if he's never experienced it.
3-2 is hit to third. The play is made. Carlos Martinez, a 1-2-3-8.
Baseball is brought to you by Budweiser, the official beer of Major League Baseball. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. And by Ford, the official cars and trucks of the Cardinals. Again, many thanks to our sponsors for supporting us throughout the year on Fox Sports Midwest. All of us have a chance to meet many of those sponsors personally. And they are passionate Cardinal fans. And again, we thank them very, very much. Pedro Strop, closer of the future for the Chicago Cubs. Our Chevy call to the pen.
Really has an electric arm, and they've identified him as a guy that is their next closer and their current closer. Kevin Gregg wasn't too happy to hear about that, but this guy's got a nasty little slider and also throws hard. And I think, as Al said, I'd love to see him, no offense, have a long and rough inning so we could have Matt Carpenter be the 9th batter of the inning.
Nothing personal.
No.
Jay with 2 of the Cardinals' 8 hits, and he also drove in his 67th run. His home runs are up, RBIs up significantly, and a 276 batting average, so not too shabby.
1-1 to John Jay coming up as the shadows now playing a factor in this game. Shadows at the plate. The check swing, he did go.
It's a little tougher for the hitters, which is fine for the Chicago hitters, but wouldn't mind a little insurance runs. Hopefully get Matt Carpenter back up. Cardinals have to have a pretty strong inning, though.
Cardinals can enjoy a few days off. Nurse some of those nagging injuries, refocus, regroup. And it seems like this has been a group, when you give them a day off, they come back on a tear.
I agree.
Haven't always said that about different teams. At times you have a day off and you say, man, I wish we were playing that night because you're playing so well. But I think it's time to shut it down for a little bit and then regroup.
The thing he was saying before the game, he liked the last at bat of Matt Carpenter. How do you not? He had a home run right center field, and he said he wants him to just kind of sit on that, kind of have that feeling flowing into the playoffs. So he's kind of big on that kind of, where are you at mentally and how do you feel? And as a team, how could the Cardinals feel better going into those off days than what we've seen during this homestand?
Leadoff walk to Jay. This copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the St. Louis Cardinals. It may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals. Here's Chambers. Rick and Al will continue to work the postseason, I should say, coming up with the playoffs and doing your thing on the post-game shows. Looking forward to that with Andy Bennis, Jim Edmonds, Al Raboski, Rick Horton, Pat Paris, Jim Hayes. Again, you can follow the Cardinals, get all the post-game reaction after every single playoff game and World Series game. Little chopper, tough to turn to. And Jay to second, and there safely. Postseason tickets at Cardinals.com/tickets. Game 1 Thursday, Game 2 Friday, if necessary. Wednesday, October 9th, Cardinals.com/tickets. It's down to now just 100 or so available for those games, so you need to make sure and get those tickets now. Cardinals in this great postseason run, and this isn't a knock at what the Atlanta Braves have done. Clearly they've won, but remember, there was times in the playoffs they didn't sell out those games. This club has become accustomed to winning. The fan base has gotten used to it, but never take it for granted.
And we've understood for a very long time, and we really stay in contact with the fact that just St. Louis is not what Cardinal Nation is. I mean, this is a regional, in some ways a national phenomenon. Folks that love the Cardinals from all over the country, but the people that will come to games here are really from all over the Midwest. We meet them day after day here at the ballpark, where they've come from Nebraska and Iowa and all over the state of Illinois and Arkansas and Oklahoma, and it's just fun to be a part of kind of this regional phenomenon and organization called the St. Louis Cardinals, and it's been a fun community. We'll see him on the road all season long.
Cardinals have that strong following, and a lot of it has to do with the success the team's had on the field. At the time, the Cardinals were the only team west of the Mississippi.
Three and two. Adams got a piece. We haven't talked much about the loss of Alan Craig, as much as we probably would if first base position you saw a big drop off, and you haven't had that.
8 home runs for Matt Adams since Alan Craig went down, and nobody's forgetting about Alan Craig, but you're 100% right. It's less of a ongoing conversation, and Jason Mott would be the same way with what Mojica did all season long.
On 3 and 2, Adams strikes out.
Off-speed pitch. There's that short little slider. No wonder they like this guy.
And I think the Shadows having a little bit to do with these hitters right now. Pitcher in bright sunshine, and then about, what, 8 feet in front of the plate, turns dark as the Shadows take over home plate.
Good breaking ball there from Stroke to Cruz. So if the Cardinals can hold on, that would mean the Dodgers open at Atlanta. What a series that could be. Cardinals then get the winner of Pittsburgh and Cincinnati.
And we know fans have had a hard time following all of the permutations and combinations of the playoff structure as it is in baseball. Of course, it would be worse if you were an American League fan trying to figure out what you were doing if you were the Cleveland Indians. But it's getting clearer and clearer, and it'll be perfectly clear in 3 outs, one way or the other.
Well, the Cardinals hold their own destiny, and I think the one thing that Mike Matheny's been trying to preach is don't hope for one team because you might get the other, and whoever you're going to face is going to be a worthy opponent.
2-1 pitch with 2 down. 2-2. Watkins, Rizzo, Shearholtz due up for Chicago, looking ahead to the 9th.
Selfishly would like to see the atmosphere in Pittsburgh. If you're talking about Pittsburgh or Cincinnati, who would win that? There's just something electric going on in Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati's been a little bit ho-hum about their team all season long.
Very much so.
Oddly.
And Cruz puts a charge into this one out to deep left. And it's off the wall. 4-0 Cardinals. Tony Cruz delivers some insurance here in the 8th. And again, a 2-out RBI base hit.
And again, a double.
Big run right there. Just misses a home run. There's that slider. It kind of backs up a little bit, stays inside over the outstretched glove of Bogasevic right at the base of the wall, and John Jay scores. Tony's out there in scoring position, and Dale Swaim out to make what looks like a pitching change.
Zach him really all day long, because the fact is Al loves to watch these lefties. So here we go. Get your wish.
I'm going to enjoy the other one. It's going to be in a little bit after they get the final out, which hopefully will be 2 hours from now. Looking forward to the Cardinal left-hander.
That's a bold prediction.
Wow.
That means Carpenter gets to bat again in that scenario.
Come on, you got to help me out.
Keep believing.
Cosma.
Here's Cosma. Two outs and a runner at second. Oh, 0-2. Cosma delivered with an RBI double in game 2 of this series. Really, I think one of the beauties of postseason play and your involvement with it,
the fact is that Al and Rick will be at the pep rallies and willing to take pictures and sign autographs, say hello, then take in the game, and then they're on the post-game show. Make a full day of it.
Isn't it going to be amazing when our leader, Dan McLaughlin's going to be there heeding the cheers?
He is pretty peppy.
Very peppy.
God, have you ever seen him at a pep rally? You've seen him at his best.
I like the thought.
These fans come in ready to go. I'm done with the pep rally.
It is a pretty interactive moment, those pep rallies.
He'll be handing out his tweet.
And his scoops.
Twitter handle. Al.
Your Twitter handle. Yeah. What is it again, Dan?
That'd be a Twitter handle. I'm not handing out my tweet.
In St. Louis. Coming up after the game on the post-game edition of Missouri Lottery Cardinals Live. Pat Paris and Jim Edmonds are waiting in the wings. The Cards close in on home field advantage. They'll chart out the Cards postseason course. Joe Kelly, very nice work in relief with Jake Westbrook. They'll look at his day. Plus, we'll get Mike Matheny's post-game comments as well. Kevin Segrist on to pitch for the Cardinals. We head back to the booth. And Dan, Rick, and Al, and guys, it's been a pleasure to work with you all season long.
Whatever, Jim. Here's Segrist.
Oh.
Jim's the best.
That was sincerity, my friend.
That's the best. Jim is the best.
So was Jim. So was Dan.
Jim is the best.
Segrist comes in here for the 45th time, and you see that microscopic ERA, 0.47, just dominant.
Well, if you ever wanted to know what the players think of Jim, and I do mean this sincerely, look at that post-game celebration and how they went after him, but it was done out of fun and respect, and the fact that they like him so much. And a lot of the info and different interviews we get, it's because of Jim's relationship with the players. Just a good guy and works his tail off, and great year by Jim as always. So Segrist comes in. The Cardinals 3 outs away from clinching home field advantage.
And they have 4 straight left-handers in the lineup right now, so it lines up perfectly for Segrist.
Behind on this first batter, but he has been a strike thrower, and we know he's got good stuff, but he's had incredible command of that stuff for a young pitcher, and really you can say that about a lot of the Cardinal young arms. Explosive stuff, and they know what to do with it. Not been overwhelmed by any situation.
When he first came up, nobody envisioned this kind of year that he's put together. I mean, he has just been awesome.
38 2/3 innings, only 16 hits. They've scored 2 runs off him. One of those was on a home run. He's hit one batter, has walked 18, but struck out 50.
Here's a ground ball hit to short. One away. And 2 away from owning the best record in the National League for 2013.
Mike Matheny was, with 2 more outs, was able to do things his way, and his team responded and comes up with a 97th victory. And so really no controversy as long as they win.
1 out, nobody on. Rizzo.
Some risky moves with very good reward.
And people kind of wondering, we talk about the Westbrook start, having Yachty in the lineup, but then losing him as his game's about ready to begin, pull him and replace him with Tony Cruz.
Not playing Holiday.
Not playing Holiday. Freeze 2 days in a row. So Matt Holiday will end up hitting 300.
0-2 pitch.
But, you know, I've always said, you know, your manager makes decisions, but it's up to the execution of the players to decide whether they're good or bad. And the players have responded for him.
0-2 pitch again. Ground ball. Right side. Adams is there. Steps on the bag. Time for our Budweiser player of the game. The fans. Over 3.3 million strong Budweiser players of the game. And they're on their feet.
Seagrass 1 out away from picking up his first major league save. Excuse me. They're 4-0 now.
Darnell McDonald, the final hope for Chicago. Strike 1. On 1 pitch. Strike 2. The 0-2 pitch. 1 ball and 2 strikes. That pitch at 99 miles an hour from Seagrass.
I think that's the hardest we've seen him throw, and deserves to have a strikeout this final out.
The 1-2. Fly ball. Shallow right. Robinson. Whoa, and a diving effort just came up short. Great effort there from Colton Wong. Would have been some kind of way to end it.
Just beyond his outstretched glove. Great effort right there, as you say, and that's kind of symbolizes these young Cardinal players. Play it flat out, all out. I want the strikeout, Dan.
See if he can't get it on 1 and 2. Two and 2. Pitch from Kevin Seagrass. We'll do it again. Again at 99 from the big lefty. 2-2. Lined into left center field. And a base hit as McDonald extends the ball game.
First Cub hit today, and they have 5 of them. That is not a double.
Here's Ryan Sweeney. Ground ball that stays fair. Carpenter tosses over to first, and the Cardinals have a sweep. They have the best record overall in the National League. They have home field advantage in the postseason. Playoffs, here we come.
Now the Cardinals, been a long year, a lot of injuries, a lot of things happen, but this team has persevered, and they deserve everything they're going to get. 97 wins in the regular season. Who would have thunk it?
An outstanding season, good young pitching, hitting with runners in scoring position, and you can't finish it off any better than we've seen on this homestand. The pitching's been terrific, and the Cardinals flying high into postseason.
For the final time in 2013, we say on to the postgame show for regular season action. What a fun year.